Things have changed, haven't they? But one of the things that hasn't and won't is Jan Scruggs. You're a piece of history. We are very thankful that you did what you had to do. And you had to fight another battle after Vietnam, and that battle was through the bureaucracy of the government. Can you start from the beginning? We'd love to hear that story.
Long story short is building the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was something I had to do. I remember, here in Chicagoland, you have great quotes, great architecture, great people, and one of your great architects was Harry. Do you remember Ron? He was a sculptor, African-American sculptor.
Richard
Hunt.
Richard Hunt, yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we had people like that on our team. Ron Gibbs. To get this legislation passed, you had to get a majority of the House and Senate. He was in charge of the lobbying campaign, and the biggest problem we had initially was persuading people that we should put a memorial up for a war that the United States had lost. So we had to brush them aside, and Ron was very good at that. So it became my destiny, I guess, to build the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. At the time I started this, my wife and I, who's here tonight, I went to her after I saw this movie called The Deer Hunter, and I said, you know what? In the morning, I said, I'm going to build a National Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I know I can do this, because I felt that the power of these names on the wall, engraved right next to each other, was so brilliant and had been done so many times throughout history. But this was a great place. Right next to the Lincoln Memorial is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So there's a historical meeting of the two. But my wife said, well, we really don't have any money. And she was right. But I came up with, sold a cabin I had in West Virginia, and just had a press conference in Washington, D.C., and announced the plans for the memorial. And 6 weeks later, it was on NBC and CBS and ABC, the story of the failed Vietnam Veterans Memorial. But I was able to win over more people through that publicity. And I just like to ask my wife to stand for a second. She hates doing that, but she deserves the credit. Do it. Yeah, she did all the hard work. But, and you have dreams in your life. You have dreams for this county, for this facility. You better have the right team together. You need the right team to get the dream passed. And the team we got through the newspaper articles about the stupid guy named Jan Scruggs was three very prominent people who left West Point and went directly to the Harvard Business School. That's what they do with the really smart ones. Yeah, Harvard Business School, because Army is like a big, huge corporation, a big, huge family, and you need a lot of people there to take care of it. So we put together, like we would do at Harvard or the Chicago School of Business, we put together a plan. There are several elements. First, we needed a site. Then we needed a design. Then we needed money. We needed all these elements to work and to have this memorial built in November 1982. And we did that, which was almost a miracle. The probability for success was that low. So, next question.
Where were you going to put it? I mean, it's an unusual shape form. You could hardly see it if you don't know it's there.
Yeah.
You don't, and so close to the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah. Well, we really felt the Lincoln Memorial had such a historical linkage that it would work there. And basically, we had the largest architectural design competition in the history of Western civilization. The St. Louis Arch, the Eiffel Tower, many great works of architecture come through these meetings of architects, and they actually vote and select it. But they felt that that was the perfect design for a place that's very close to people, the hearts of people, of President Lincoln, whose brilliance in trying to stop the Civil War from occurring has never really been noticed, but he did everything he could to stop it. Next.
Now, one end of it points to the Washington Monument, the other to the Lincoln Memorial, so you have this cut in the land almost like an explosion made it. Is that what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, it was, we needed something that was soft and gentle, but still delivered the message. And the answer to that problem was to use black granite. And when her design was announced, this automatically became a national debate over this design. We got the money, we raised the money for this memorial, we were ready to break ground, but we had some very powerful people in Washington, D.C., and they did everything they could to stop it. And finally, we got the construction underway. Basically, what happened was we got legislation through the House, through the Senate, then we had to get to the design approval. I did all that at record speed. And we just needed somebody to really give it a push. But then we went to get the construction permit, and the Secretary of Interior staff said, "I'm sorry, but you're not building the Vietnam Veterans Memorial," because the Secretary of the Interior has received 22 phone calls in approximately 1/2 hour from prominent members of Congress, and they weren't kidding. These guys were that good. And we were good too. So we're just glad it had the happy ending that it did, but the probability of success was almost nothing. How we got the construction permit was a guy named Tom Shull, who's president of a company called AFES, Armed Forces. And he went to get the construction permit, and the guy said, "Sorry, you're not getting it," because of all the people who had called the Secretary of the Interior. So I thought I had run out of tricks, but this guy said, "Well, let me try my favorite trick." And he walked in to see the Secretary of the Interior staff and said, "I am here because President Ronald Reagan wants me here. He also wants this memorial to be underway and to end this ceaseless debate." And the guy handed him the construction permit. The only thing was, he didn't really have President Reagan behind him.
Attaboy. There's something magical working when you look into the black granite. First of all, the names. How did you decide that the names wouldn't be in alphabetical order? That they're very difficult to find unless you go to the directory at the front.
Yeah, the designer Maya Lin, she had the names beginning alphabetically, then she put them by date of death. They are alphabetical by date of death, but if anybody in here has been in a firefight with weapons and AK-47s, not everybody walks away from that firefight. And but when they come to see the memorial, to see their friend's name, they see the two guys that were right next to each other when the explosion occurred. They saw and many times the person re-listens to, re-experiences the emotions, and that was it. But yeah, seeing your own face reflected in the names is a very dramatic thing.
I experienced it because you stand there and you begin reading the names, and you're looking at a black granite, not even realizing it, and all of a sudden the name disappears and you can see your face in the black granite, and you can see deep in there, and it's as if coming to grips with your own emotions and with your memories. And the veterans walk away just unbelievably moved. And so do the friends and family. Everybody gets it.
Yeah. Well, I can only tell you what happened to me, and I came back from Vietnam with post-traumatic stress disorder and was kind of on my way to nowhere, running around with motorcycles and the wrong people. But it was January 21st of 1970. I heard a big explosion, and I ran over to a truck. The truck was on fire, and so were my friends. There were 12 guys. They all died within an hour. They were the explosive power of 3 81 millimeter rounds, when being handled between somebody from, as we are, about the same distance from each other, nobody escapes from it. So anyway, I was affected by PTSD, and because of that, I became an expert on PTSD. I went to American University, got a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology, and did some research which was very recognized by military medicine and also the American University Journal. But this was a really important finding. And also ultimately, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was able to get the names engraved and have the desired effect. And I also testified in front of Congress twice to get that done. So, you know, it's been a very rewarding life. I have a great wife, and I live in Annapolis, Maryland, and a lot of good things have happened to me. And I've come close to dying a couple times in the last several years, yeah.
How?
Yeah. Well, one was the 35th anniversary of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and I woke up one morning and I just fell down, and I was placed in a coma, and the doctors wanted to remove the life support. So that was a close one. Another time, endocarditis is a disease, and I was driving home from Richmond, Virginia, and I have no record of where I was, but I actually went around Route 495 until my car ran out of gas, and they did surgery. And then after all that, I had one final surgery done at the Cleveland Clinic by a Japanese surgeon, and he was very good at working in small areas with his hands, and a very famous guy. So I think I'm cured.
We hope so. We hope we help. So, still on PTSD, does it ever go away, or can it come back?
I think it tends more to come back. If you're in an unstable situation, many times people with PTSD will not be able to handle it. On the other hand, many of them are very good at handling difficult situations and actually end up doing things like firefighting and police work as well.
Then you had you have the 3 soldiers standing. What went into that decision?
We made a deal with the opponents of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial that we would have a statue of 3 fighting men, and that this would be very patriotic and all that. And that was accepted. It was done by a famous sculptor, Frederick Hart, and Richard Hunt looked at it as well. He was very impressed. And that was dedicated in February 1985. And a beautiful work of sculpture. There's also a Vietnam Women's Memorial there, too, with 3 women holding a Marine who's been injured. And it's very, very moving, and a very, very great place to take a small group of school kids and have a little lecture, Q&A.
Who was behind that? The woman.
Maya Lin, she was she was very much opposed to that, but she did take a look at it, and I think it understands why we had to do it at the time.
Why was she against it?
An artist doesn't want people to come around and say, these arms are too big, these legs are too short. The paint, they don't like to be told, once they have their work of art, the piece de resistance, they do not like for somebody to come, some bureaucrats from Washington, and tell them, it's not good enough. There are going to be some changes. So that's how we had to do that.
Nobody likes that. But it seems to have caught on. Everybody wants black granite now. Everybody wants a memorial, and they should have it. And then you have the Korean memorial, which I love. Fantastic.
Yes.
And then you have World War II
Yes.
coming back.
Correct.
So it's not going to end, I presume.
Well, you might be interested to know that on the Korean War Memorial, we have 58,000 names on the Vietnam Memorial. The Korean Memorial has about 34,000 names, but about 1,000 of them have been misspelled. No. It was quite a media story 3 years ago. Yeah, basically, the Army has a casualty branch that keeps track of casualties. But during the Korean War, it wasn't fully developed. So if somebody died in combat, if somebody died in maneuvers, they are all kind of put in the same basket. And they didn't have time at the Korean War Memorial to really go down and shoot down every problem as it occurred. And ultimately, the government of Korea, I believe, agreed to give the money to repair it, which is about $15 or $20 million. So, but the Korean War Memorial, Vietnam Memorial, then the Korean War Memorial, then the World War II Memorial, now the Desert Storm Memorial, and the War on Terror Memorial. So I kind of started something bigger than myself.
Did a good job on that.
Yeah.
What are some of the dramatic reactions from veterans first that you can remember that you have seen?
Well, over 500,000 items have been left at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Everything you can possibly imagine. And one guy every year leaves a pack of cigarettes and a Budweiser can, and all this. And there's no real, there's nothing in anthropologically speaking that lays a basis for doing that. I mean, if you want to see people with little houses next to their home, go to Japan or go to South Korea. Part of the Buddhist, it's ancestor worship. But for some reason, people came to see the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. They started doing it almost immediately. I saw a pair of cowboy boots right there at the center of the two lines. And that was very, very scary sort of thing. But because you could just feel the spirit of this guy going through these cowboy boots.
But touching, I mean, almost more than the memorial itself. I mean, just as you describe it, it hits you hard. I mean, that's deep.
Yeah, and I met, one of the odd things that somebody left at the Vietnam Wall was a picture of a North Vietnamese soldier who he had killed. But they had met each other they were both going to the same destination, and when they got about 25 feet from each other, he fired his rifle at the North Vietnamese soldier. The North Vietnamese soldier actually had the opportunity to kill him, but he wouldn't do it. And he couldn't do it psychologically for some reason. But anyway, he called me, and I got him in touch with the Vietnamese embassy, and they actually found the family. He said, I just want to meet the family and tell them I'm sorry. And so we made that happen.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that people leave there, and that's why it makes it so unusual. And to your point about more granite memorials, you go to Wyoming, you go to Oregon, they're all over the place. There's a guy in Texas who will sell you a full-scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial for about $850,000. We never copyrighted it.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah,
But the traveling wall is terrific.
yeah, traveling well. Okay, this is just a run through. Here's your typical day at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. You know, kids and adults together. Next. Maya Lin. Maya Lin. She grew up in Athens, Ohio, by the way. Both of her
really?
parents were English professors at Ohio State University.
Well, she didn't have the easiest time either, did she?
No, she was the center of, you know, every major newspaper had reporters assigned to getting juicy quotes from her and all that sort of thing. But she was a good negotiator too. She knew what she was doing. She was holding some cards. Here's a sort of thing that people leave. Many times they will put it in a bag, plastic bag, to preserve it. So here's this guy right before he goes off to Nam with his wife, and now he's in Arlington Cemetery or some other cemetery.
Love you flying, Grandpa. Here's the Battle of Dak To right there.
Yeah, I'm going to show you this. Look at this. This is that's a little canister of oil for your rifle, AK-47. This guy was at the Battle of Dak To, Hill 875 with the 173rd Airborne. It was a very big fight. A couple of Army infantry companies were wiped out. Only three or four guys left.
But his message, I'm going to read it.
Good.
If I can get through it. Taken from a North Vietnamese soldier during the battle on Hill 875, November 19th through November 23rd, 1967. My father asked me to leave it at the wall for a reason known only to him. His description of this battle is simply hell on earth. I hope by leaving this at the great memorial gives Dad some peace. Thank you, vets.
Isn't that something?
Wow. Well, that's every foot, there's something like that.
Yes. Right.
Meaningful, and maybe they're able to talk to the wall when they can't really say it to anyone else.
A group of psychologists and other learned people studied the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and found that it was a place where people who are living, like we're living, can actually talk to the dead. I mean, you talk, not that the dead hear, I don't know what they hear or don't hear, but they can bond together. And it helps people many people who have PTSD come to the wall and are cured. I mean, it happens with some frequency.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was going to expand the Vietnam Veterans Memorial to include a education center. These are the people who died during the war on Iraq. So it would have been a wider education center than was originally planned. Anyway, the whole thing fell apart, and it was time for me to retire and go to nice places like Niles. Next. Yeah.
The War on Terror Memorial.
Yeah. Yeah. New York Times, they decided to give me a break. So I wrote an article called Why We Need a War on Terror Memorial. And I got them started and got them in a lot of money. And basically, we persuaded the New York Times to run that. And it was quite a coup. But the War on Terror Memorial has some pretty good guys in charge. President George Bush, 42 to 43, the second George Bush. Yeah, he's one of the chairs, and it's being done out of kind of near his museum. But it'll be on the mall in Washington, D.C.
So they're working on the Iraqi freedom.
Yeah, they do not have a design yet. You have to do that very carefully and have the right people in place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's the headline for any reporters in town. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. And next, there we go.
Oh, John McCain. John McCain and his wife, and well, John McCain is dead, but he had a very interesting history with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. He visited it frequently and always by himself, never with a staff or reporters, paid tribute to people. But yeah, and John McCain was buried at the U.S. Naval Academy. It's about a mile from my house.
Really?
I visit him too. He and I were very good friends. And he said to me a couple of years ago, he said, Jan, he says, when I die, I'm just another senator, but you're like the Vietnam War guy.
And I believe he's buried next to his friend,
He
a
is.
close friend, a Corky or someone like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
The guy on the right is General Mad Dog. You see, Marines can recognize him even from the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we had this big kind of pissing contest. We invited President Clinton to speak at the wall, and it turned to be a kind of a big mistake. But yeah, basically, that was what they argued. So here he was right here, yeah.
Kerry was also.
You mean the river man? Was that you?
Oh, yeah, one of my many hospital visits, which I believe I'd been healed.
So here's the open to it.
Yeah. Next.
Everything is so perfect because it's small at the beginning, and then it opens up like this, which is dramatic.
A rift in the earth. That's
Rift
what she called it, a
the
rift in the earth, like a sore in the earth.
A rip.
Yeah.
Jan, just real quick, we're going to present you with a plaque. And the inscription on this plaque was created by my good friend Mark Limperopoulos. I'd like to have Mark read the inscription first.
That wall will forever give us a lasting memory of our war. The impact of the wall will be recognized with the same honor and respect as the Iwo Jima Memorial of World War II, with heartfelt appreciation for all that you have done in accomplishing your goal. VVA Chapter 242, Chicago. Welcome home, Jan.